Warlord Snicket strode into his refuse-strewn den and threw his shield to the ground, startling several rats that fled into the cracks in the walls. His heavy rusted armour was stained with blood, and he chittered to himself in barely contained excitement. The day had been his. He had led the raiding party deep into the heart of his rival's territory, fatally crippling Clan Festus. He knew that even now the other warlords would be descending on the survivors, picking the now vulnerable clan to pieces like carrion. As the Skaven leader basked in the glory of his perfectly executed victory, a shadow separated itself from the ceiling, dropping to land silently behind him, melding once again in the gloom. Snicket's broken and torn whiskers twitched, and he turned his head suspiciously toward the darkness. His eyes widened in surprise as the shadow stared back at him, red eyes glowing like hellish coals in the darkness. In a blur of movement, a black-clad figure leapt forwards towards the warlord, dragging the shadows behind it like a cloak. Dark, bladed claws bound the creature's hands, slashed viciously through the air, and Snicket threw himself backwards to avoid the blows that would have opened his belly. Glaring at the assassin contemptuously, Snicket drew his serrated blade, baring his sharp, yellow teeth. His body and face wrapped tightly in black cloth, the assassin stepped forward slowly, each step perfectly balanced and silent. Darkness coiled around him like a living creature, and Snicket's head hurt to watch the deadly foe. Snarling, the warlord lunged forwards, his heavy blade descending towards the assassin's head. The blow was swatted aside, and the assassin launched a lightning counterattack that scratched 3 lines of red blood across Snicket's face, barely missing his eye. The assassin stepped back, satisfaction gleaming in his cruel gaze. Warlord Snicket felt his face beginning to go numb, and fear coursed through him. He could feel the poison pumping through his system, working its way towards his heart, and his vision began to swim. With desperate strength, Snicket lurched towards the assassin, who dropped into a crouch, his fighting claws moving menacingly before him. Snicket launched into a series of swift attacks, each turned aside by the assassin, who moved with supernatural speed and finesse. The assassin caught the warlord's blade between the claws on one of his hands, and snapped it with a sharp blow with the palm of his other. Stepping in close to the black-clad figure, the larger Skaven struck upwards with the hilt of his sword, a sharp crack sounding as the blow struck the Clan Eshin Adept's jaw. The assassin reeled backwards from the powerful blow, and Snicket, pulling a long dagger from his sheath, swiftly closed in on the stunned figure. Recovering quickly, the assassin swayed to the side, the slashing blade passing scant inches from his neck. Lashing out deftly, the assassin caught Snicket's arm as it passed, twisting it sharply. A squeal of pain erupted from Snicket's throat as his shoulder was wrenched from its socket and he dropped his dagger to the floor. The assassin punched upwards, the palm of his hand landing sharply against the warlord's overextended elbow joint. A shriek of pain followed the sickening crunch that sounded loudly across the room, and the warlord's arm fell limply to his side. Mad with pain, Snicket latched onto the assassin's scrawny neck, his dirty broken nails cutting into the black-furred throat. The assassin struggled frantically, but could not break from the warlord's powerful grip. With a feral snarl, the enraged Skaven warlord lunged forwards, its sharp yellow teeth flashing towards the assassin's face. Struggling desperately, his eyes filled with horror, the assassin turned his face away from the savage attack. Snicket's teeth sank into the side of the black-garbed figure's face, tearing viciously at the flesh. Snicket snarled again, spitting blood from his mouth, his eyes wild with fury and pain. Lifting the assassin by the throat, he slammed the black-clad figure brutally into the wall. There was a sharp crack as ribs shattered. The assassin slid to the floor, gasping for breath. Snicket bent to the ground, picking up a heavy, partially gnawed bone, and hefted it menacingly, staring balefully down at the broken assassin.
Fools! Think mighty Lord Snickard could be taken so easily, do they?
The warlord stiffened suddenly, his eyes widening in disbelief. Blood rose from his throat in a gurgling froth. The second assassin wrenched his dark serrated blade from the warlord's back. The blood on the assassin's dagger was mixed with the foul greenish liquid seeping from the blade and dripped hissing on the floor. The heavily armoured Skaven fell. Staring blindly at the dark ceiling, Warlord Snickard lay on his back, his tail twitching as his body went into a series of convulsions. The assassins drew back into the shadows, disappearing into the darkness once more. For a moment, their eyes could still be seen, glowing malevolently, before they too vanished from sight.